este în economia partidei. Delgado acolo este, va fi corner, dragi ascultători.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Valverde Broadcasting. This is a very special podcast in place of our usual Wednesday stuff. I was recently contacted by a director by the name of Lewis Taylor who is creating a short film, a special effects-based short film called Sleep Tight, which is currently available on Crowdfunder. They're doing a crowdfund to make £6,000 to make the film. You can go and watch the video there. I'll put a link in the description and stuff. Just to be clear, full disclosure, I don't have any involvement in the film. It's just I was contacted and asked if I wanted to help kind of put the word out there, and I read up on it and watched the video, and it looked like a lot of fun. It's up my street. It's kind of your kind of throwback effects horror. So, Lewis, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Richard. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. I'm very well. I'm sat in my office. I say office, I mean corner of the living room. I'm sat in my corner of the living room on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. So why don't you just give us a quick rundown, pitch Sleep Tight to us.
Okay, well, Sleep Tight is essentially a horror comedy short film, 5 minutes, about essentially sleep paralysis. But it's a throwback to sort of the movies that really inspired me when I was growing up, which is sort of 80s horror films, essentially. Mm-hmm. And the story involves a teenage son who is wheelchair bound, and he's being put to bed by his father, who's sort of overly attached after being, looking after him for quite some time. The kid's kind of saying, well, give me some space. And then through the means of wonderful bouncy dialogue, you sort of find out that perhaps the father, unwittingly, when reading his son a bedtime story, perhaps maybe read from a satanic book by accident and summoned a succubus.
as is standard story time procedure.
Yes.
Summoning a succubus.
Yeah, that's essentially it.
Okay, cool. So, I think people listening to this are going to kind of get a vibe from that already. You've got a kind of a little bit of a Evil Dead thing in there. There's a bit of maybe Critters or Gremlins, kind of creature feature type stuff. Very prominently on your crowdfunder, you have a little grid of posters, which is kind of very familiar to all of us. So I see Day of the Dead, The Evil Dead, Fright Night, Gremlins, Poltergeist, and among others. Now, you wrote the script yourself, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and is this, do you have much of a background in screenwriting? Have you written anything longer, or is this kind of a first crack at kind of a short to see how things go? What was your approach?
Well, I originally actually used to work in film pre-production with the script department, so my job was reading sort of first draft scripts and doing reports and seeing what works, what doesn't work, what you can, improve on, or if it's just complete, shit show. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. Have you watched our channel?
Yeah. I just didn't know.
Oh no, please! You could say fuck. You can say shit. You can say greasy piss flaps. Anything you want. I encourage improvisation and any kind of compound swears. Absolutely fine.
Well, this is okay. I'll go off the rails. But yeah, no, I was working with pre-production, and this is how I got into writing stuff. I assumed that you needed an English literature degree, study screenwriting and all this stuff, and then you'd see the first drafts that come through, and they're just full of spelling mistakes.
Oh right, okay.
So I was like, and I'd say something like, oh, this isn't very good. How much did you pay for them to write this? I could have written something equally as bad as this for much, much cheaper. So that's how I got into giving it a try myself. And then I've written about 5 feature-length screenplays. Mm-hmm. And then this was sort of... I'm more used to writing that length. And so I sort of had to train myself to write shorter and shorter to do a short, basically.
Right, okay, so you kind of approached it that way instead of starting kind of from the short end, you started at feature and kind of worked backwards.
Yeah, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long has Sleep Tight been in development? I mean, when you launched your crowdfunder quite recently, so when did you first have this idea, and when did it sort of start becoming flesh, so to speak?
Great choice of words as well on that.
Yeah.
So I came up with the idea sort of about Boxing Day, Christmas Boxing Day. And
Okay.
like, oh, this is like this, just do it real simple because it's one setting. It's just in the bedroom. Oh, this could be an easy short to kind of do. And then I kind of twiddled out a little really bad overview, and then sort of put it on the back burner. And then what happened was the DP Nick that's on this short, who's this sort of whiz kid camera guy, and I was chatting to him, and he's like, I really want to do a short, and I said, well, I've kind of got this idea. So then I started drafting it and all this kind of stuff. And so that was earlier in this year. And then obviously we've been doing it around working and all this kind of stuff. And that's sort of the genesis of how the project came about, really.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, reading through the crowdfunder, the pieces seem to be in place. Am I right in thinking that, in terms of your crew and your cast?
Oh yeah, very much so, very much so.
Okay, locations, the whole thing is kind of ready to go. You're just getting the budget together.
Yeah, pretty much just getting the budget together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe how difficult finding just a bedroom is, actually.
Yeah, locations are a shit like that, aren't they? Because sometimes you just think, oh, well, I've kept it simple. I'll just have this small location, and then actually finding one, particularly a bedroom, because you've got to fit your whole crew in there, and then pull off loads of effects and stuff. And then the person who owns the bedroom has to be ready for the fact that you're probably going to be spraying it with blood and latex guts and whatever else.
Yeah, yeah, particularly finding a room that's, because if you're shooting in one location, you want to get as much coverage of angles as possible. So, and let's say, for example, if you're doing a larger shot and there's only one scene in a bedroom, you can maybe, perhaps sacrifice the amount of shots you're getting because it's only a short scene. Whereas if you're spending 5 minutes in one location, you kind of have to have it to be, a larger size essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get what you're after.
Because it feels to me, looking at it. So Lewis's target is, like I said, 6,000. At the present time, you have around 1,800, and there's still time to go. So we're trying to drum up a bit of support for you there. That's for a 5-minute short. So it feels to me that you're going to kind of really, really focus down on getting really great effects and stuff like that. And presumably, I mean, is a lot of that going towards the kind of are you having animatronics? Are you having kind of puppets? Like, what's your plans for the Abomination?
Well, the effects are created by a sort of effects whiz called Susie Battersby and her team. She's got her own effects team now that she started up called Red Girl Effects, which is like an all-female monster effects company, which is, as I'm aware, it might be the only one that exists. And they've worked on Star Wars and Alien and I mean, you name it, they've worked on it.
She's got a very impressive kind of, on your crowdfunder page, quite an impressive list of stuff. So we've got Force Awakens, and like you say, Alien Covenant, but also things like Holby City, National Geographic, the Royal Opera House, Broadway. I mean, that's all pretty impressive stuff, isn't it? And to get that kind of talent focused down into a 5-minute short, I would expect some cool shit to be going down in that respect.
Yeah, so we're sort of we're kind of doing a sort of not a Deadite, but a Deadite-esque kind of creature. So not necessarily any puppets, but nice prosthetic effects and great costume and sort of. I really wanted to make the point that it's not a zombie.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's another like the Deadites are kind of like almost otherworldly kind of creatures, aren't they? So it's sort of
sure. They're like supernatural. They're demons or whatever. They're not your kind of run-of-the-mill zombie type things.
Yeah, no. So this is not like a reanimated corpse. This is an ethereal, otherworldly kind of creature, basically. yeah, so the effects are sort of where a nice little chunk of the budget's going into, because I really wanted to make sure that looks top notch. Do you know what I mean? Because let's face it, when you're watching any of these films, your Freddys and your Jasons, they're the real kind of stars of the movie, aren't they? So if that effect looks bad, then you dead on arrival, basically.
Yeah, well, that's what people remember, isn't it? I mean, people don't buy the action figure of Tommy so much; they want fucking Jason, or well, people do now because you can get figures of everything. But you want Jason, you want the cool creature.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, because like I say, if you are a dear listener to go to the Crowdfunder page, which again is in the description, you can look through the cast and crew, which is pretty impressive. I mean, because it's all very professional, top to bottom. I mean, when you first had this concept, did you know who you wanted to get, particularly in the side of casting? Did you already have people in mind for that, or did you kind of put feelers out after you had the screenplay in place?
Well, I wrote the script first because you have to have that.
Some people don't, though. You did the right thing, but some fuckers don't. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's got a spaceship in it. Give me your money.
Yeah, there's certain even large franchise films that haven't finished their screenplay before they start shooting it, which is always
like Alien 3. Very well, we just did that the other day, but very very famous example. They were having pages handed to them and shit like that, and they built the sets before they had a screenplay and stuff, which is sounds pretty stressful. But anyway, sorry.
Not a bad flick though, Alien 3.
No. Well, we gave it a lot of love the other week because I think particularly the assembly cut. It's a really amazing film. Despite 12-year-old me disagreed because I wanted flamethrowers and explosions, but kind of grown-up me like nihilistic, depressing, space prison film. But anyway, so what's if you were to kind of in the kind of lazy way of saying, when people say kind of, oh, it's X meets Y, I hate to do that, but can you kind of capture it like that? Can you say it's, Evil Dead meets such and such or anything like that?
Yeah, I'd say it's Evil Dead with a little poltergeist and, I don't know, the Gilmore Girls.
Oh, I love the left field one. That's always good. It's kind of like, it's Friday the 13th meets Chud meets Only Fools and Horses. It's a really strange mixture of things. Is it a period piece?
That'd be good short, though.
I'd watch it. Yeah, I'd Nicholas Lyndhurst isn't busy, is he?
I think so. Not at the moment.
Is this a period piece, or is it set kind of when it's made? Is it set in the modern day?
It'll be set now because I kind of wanted to avoid the sort of the Stranger Things sort of style, because that's really popular at the moment, kind of going back to the 80s. But I wanted to kind of like capture that style without almost parodying it. You know what I mean? Like no big huge hair and shoulder pads and all that kind of stuff. Kind of have that feel, that vibe, which is for me. Those sorts of films really had you can tell there's like a love for what they're doing, a love for the film behind the camera, and kind of have that, but sort of set it now. And also, as soon as you pop it into a period piece, the budget goes up massively.
Well, that's it. Suddenly you're going out and buying fucking dealy boppers and shell suits and perm wigs and stuff. But I do kind of think, I'm of the opinion, as great as all that stuff is, I'm really fatigued on fucking 80s stuff, you know what I mean? I think if you do your film with practical effects and a creature and all of the stuff you're talking about, and even your kind of font and logo that you've got on your t-shirts and stuff, that's evocative enough, and you don't have to have someone walk out of a perm going like, oh, Duran, or whatever, because all this stuff does that. And I think just the style of film you're talking about is evocative enough of that without it having to be period.
No, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to have a guy with a t-shirt that Frankie says relax on it.
That's such a good example. It's always shit like that. That's what fucking Zack Snyder's Watchmen is to me. People walking out going, don't forget it's the 80s. It's like, yeah, okay, I fucking get it. Cheers.
And the new X-Men films as well, apparently.
Oh Christ, yeah, and I think Wonder Woman now as well is going to be an 80s one. I should say though, I do really like Stranger Things. I think they've kind of pulled off a blinder.
Same as well.
But yeah, they're kind of being spoon-fed 80s shit all the time. It's kind of doing my head in. And it's normally like nostalgia by people that didn't actually live then. I mean, I was 7. Most people think I'm old. I am old. But like, I was 7 when the 80s finished. You know what I mean? It's not as if I was driving around in a fucking Ford, I don't know, cars. I've got myself into a conversational dead end there, but I don't remember it really. And I think a lot of this stuff is kind of secondhand nostalgia. It's kind of like when I was a kid, the older kids are into 70s stuff. It's like, well, hold on. Like, you were probably like 2 when the 70s finished. Like, what's that all about?
Yeah, very, very much so. I mean, because I used to watch these films, my local library had them on VHS, so I got them through VHS and never saw them on the big screen. Because I was born in '88, so I only lived the last 2 years of the
yeah.
the 80s. But yeah, I get what you mean, especially when you sort of, I mean, when you work on set and stuff, you meet some young people, young work experience people, and they go, "Oh wow, you grew up in the early '90s. What was it like with Kurt Cobain?" And I was like, "Well, I was about 5 when he killed himself, so we didn't get to hang out too much."
I was I was in the car coming back from a Cubs trip to Bedford Oasis swimming pool when I heard about Kurt Cobain being killing himself. So it's a similar thing. It's like I was literally wearing a woggle when I found that out. It's like I didn't know him. You know what I mean? Like, strange. And I'm the same. I watched all that stuff on tape because I was too young to see it all in the cinema. Don't get me wrong, I love it. I think we come from that same body of influences, but like I watched it all kind of secondhand. I can't claim to have lived it. Whereas now, it's sort of like I remember sort of I can go like, oh well, I saw Home Alone 2 in the cinema, and people are like, man, are you in black and white? Do you remember the war? Do you remember rationing?
Yeah, it's sadly a conversation I'm having more and more the last few years. I saw Lion King in the cinema, and they go, wow.
And now you kids can see it again when it comes back in live action. Which only just occurred to me that this live action Lion King film is like, wait, hold on, but it's about lions. It can only be so live action.
I think it's entirely CGI, isn't it?
Well, it's got to be, right? Because I've seen it promoted as like a live action Lion King, and it's like, that's kind of crazy. Did you ever hear about the film? Have you heard of the film Raw?
Yes. Yeah. Of it.
It's like I think Melanie Griffith has life-altering injuries from the set of Raw. Because they use I think it's real lions and tigers, quote unquote, tamed as characters in the film. And then there's just loads of bits where it's like, I think someone's getting eaten by a lion. Like, it's really fucked up.
Only Hollywood. Only Hollywood.
Only Hollywood. I have digressed horribly here. Anyway, what would you say in terms of your visual style? I mean, effects and stuff aside, if you were to talk about how you kind of lens things or lighting design, stuff like that, who are your influences as a director? And I mean, is the way you envision this film reminiscent of any kind of named directors that you're really into or anything like that, or is it completely original in its style?
Well, Raimi's a big sort of influence on me. I think he has a lot of personality behind the camera, like, and especially if you watch stuff like Spider-Man 2. He's got this real knack of being able to switch tonally very drastically, but, have it not seem weird and jarring. So Raimi's a big one. I'm a big Cameron fan as well.
Mm-hmm.
James Cameron. So I, for one, really love the kind of like everything's tealed blue.
Yeah.
Like, cause that's what I grew up with, and I thought, when I was 10, I thought literally Terminator 2 was the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And it is awesome, don't get me wrong. But I also, because I have a first class degree in animation, so that kind of aspect of it as well, sort of animated aspect, definitely comes through. Because my first thing was after I wrote the script, I storyboarded it, I drew every panel out, And it's weird because that kind of like feels symbiotic because you're like, oh, well, I've now displayed this visually, so now I don't have to say it, so I can take it out of the script. And so they kind of feed into each other. So I'd say even animation is a big influence on the visual style of it as well.
Are there going to be any animated components in the film then, or?
No, actually, this is going to be sort of my first live action sort of thing. I've worked with live action before, but this is going to be my first live action short. I've mainly used to work with animation, which is a whole sort of different kettle of fish, really. You know, animation's a lot more time consuming, but you can manipulate a lot more. So there's less of in animation. You don't get the whole thing. We couldn't get it on the day because we ran out of time. You can just kind of do it because now, especially, it's all inside of a computer. Whereas live action is the nice thing about live action is it is in a way more collaborative. You know, you're working with actors and you're working with a DP and stuff, and so everyone brings a little bit of creativity in, and then hopefully the product becomes better and not like the island of Dr. Moreau.
Which, you know, the what's the name of the documentary about that? It's really interesting.
Yeah, the Richard Stanley.
Yeah.
I'm
gonna have to look. Do you know what? Because we're on the internet, I have to look that up now. Because people will be in the comments going like, "No, it's such and such," which would be correct to do. Because I watched it was on Netflix.
Being corrected on the internet.
Yeah, it's a big part of my life. Lost Soul: The Doomed Journey of Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau. Yeah, really amazing documentary. If anybody's interested in that, it's funny that you mention. Well, probably not that funny, all things considered, that you mentioned Raimi and animation, because particularly the first. Well, I think all three, you know, OG Evil Deads, they to some degree combined. Well, there's stop motion animation firstly. But there's kind of in-camera in animation, particularly in the first and second one, where they kind of draw makeup on people's skin and stuff to, you know, advance an effect and to do the Deadite thing. So it's kind of stop-motion stuff on an actor. And then the reverse motion stuff and all the rest of that is a big part of that. And that's a big kind of part of practical effects from that era as well. If you were to look at, I mean, when I think of that era, my big kind of idol in that area is Tom Savini. But obviously then you have KMB, so Nicotero and Berger and stuff, and obviously they worked on the Evil Dead movies, and then you've got your Rick Bakers and your others. Is it any of those in particular influential to you, or is there any makeup artist in particular that you look at when you're thinking about designing this film?
Well, Savini is like a massive one, Rick Baker too. You know, I follow them all on Instagram as well, because they have great pages. I didn't know that Rick Baker was such an amazing painter as well.
He is, and so is James Cameron as well. He's an incredible painter.
As with oh gosh, you know, a lot of those guys are very multi-talented. So yeah, Savini very much so. Rick Baker, obviously, yeah, Greg Nicotero as well. I really like his stuff, particularly like it seems every season of The Walking Dead he'll do a new effect where you're like, oh wow, I've not seen that before or anything like that. You know.
Well, yeah, and he directs episodes as well, and there's a direct line from, you know, I've always viewed that as the line from Savini to Nicotero. It's the kind of master-apprentice relationship, isn't it? And he handed so much down because then, you know, Nicotero's in Day of the Dead, but he was also doing effects at the same time. And he snuck he used to sneak classic zombies into The Walking Dead. So I remember the airport zombie turns up in one episode of The Walking Dead. There's a kind of Barb-esque one. There's been a few that he's just snuck in, which I've always really appreciated.
There was one where it was, what's his face from American Werewolf was in it. I think they got their hands on the original puppet or something. In it.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I'm sure it's on YouTube and stuff. Somebody tracked it down, but I remember seeing it in the episode. But, all those guys. Obviously Stan Winston as well. You know, he's more sort of animatronics kind of guy, but he's still... You know, I think he's kind of like in the way, like the modern day Mac Daddy of all of them.
Yeah, well, I really think so. And even kind of stuff even films that aren't great, that were Winston joints, they look fucking amazing. Like, it's worth it for the practicals most of the time. Even the kind of lesser Terminator stuff. I know, he was of increasingly bad health as those wore on, but like his team were coming out with amazing practical puppets and stuff for those shows. So good.
Jurassic Park 3 as well. His stuff on that was fantastic as well.
Mm. And, Rob Bottin, someone that's fascinated me for a long time. 'Cause, he did some incredible stuff. The Thing, obviously, and RoboCop, of course. But then he kind of ended up, I think now he works in real estate. He kind of sloped off out of Hollywood, which is really mad because he created some of the most iconic stuff ever.
And so super talented as well. And he was really young when he did The Thing, wasn't he? Was
yes.
he in his 20s or something like that?
He was. I think he might have still been in his 20s when he did RoboCop as well. I don't like to look because it just makes me sad.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, oh god, and you see like your Max Landises where they're like 33 and running shows and stuff, and you're like, oh.
I'm just looking at how many nectar points I've got left. And then you've got amalgamated dynamics, so like Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff, they seem to have carried on a lot more of the modern stuff, seem to have taken over the Alien stuff, which is kind of funny, and they get attached to things. It's odd, isn't it? I think practical effects have become like vinyl. It's kind of like some strange luxury that people enjoy rather than a pursuit unto its own, which is a real shame. It's the way of things, I suppose. And I don't want to be. I've already made myself out to be a fucking granddad in this podcast, but it's when you start going like, well, I don't like it like I used to be, but they really don't. And I think I just binged on a bunch of making of documentaries on zombie related films yesterday because I'm writing something for our channel. And I watched the Land of the Dead one, and it's sort of Romero talking about how so we had to use CGI for certain stuff, but you can tell even then he's kind of like, because it's quite minimal in that film. There's shitloads of practicals, but even he's kind of like, I had to do that and I had to do this. Which I guess he comes from such an old school situation and from a place of no money whatsoever. Actually, don't want to go on about that for too long, but apparently the Land of the Dead, which I know people have mixed feelings about, and I'm going to revisit, that cost a third as much as the Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead, a film which I also like, incidentally. But if you look at the scope of those two films relatively, like Land of the Dead has a way bigger scope. It goes to more places, it has a bigger setting, and I think it does so much more with that smaller budget.
Well, he's a master at that, though, isn't he? Sad, yeah. Actually, the Dead series is a big influence on me as well. I quite like, especially in, obviously like the effects work is fantastic, but with the low budget stuff, you can see the seams a little bit, and I like that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
there's a charm to it, isn't there? It kind of makes it
100%. It's funny you should say that about sort of it's like vinyl. Because I was having this conversation with Susie, the makeup artist, on this, and she was saying that it's seems like now, because of people that sort of grew up, it's kind of like what I'm doing with this, and in watching stuff in the 80s, there's now people are turning back a little bit. The fact of the matter is that CGI is going to be in every film from now on. It's just a tool that people use, but in terms of in-camera practical effects, it's actually kind of coming back a little bit more, which I'm quite thankful for, because I don't know if did you see the new Hellboy, the look of the new Hellboy?
Yeah, I've seen a few pics of it, sure. I kind of found it looks basically the same, doesn't it, as far as I can tell?
I was just elated the fact that they didn't CGI.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the big strengths of those first two films, is that they did a practical effect, and it's Guillermo del Toro, Shape of Water as well. The creature in that is a guy in a suit.
Doug Jones, isn't it?
Doug Jones, who is the master of skinny man in suit. He's fantastic at all of that stuff, and that's the thing, is that within these practical effects things, it's easy to forget the people in the suits as well. Because Doug Jones in particular, as skinny kind of otherworldly guy, he's this amazing performer. And then Tom Savini was influenced by Lon Chaney, and Lon Chaney didn't merely do the makeup, but he actually was the performer as well, and just did it all on himself, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah, bonkers, really.
And some of the stuff as well that he did is just you look at it now and it's like, I don't know how you did that.
Yeah, especially for the time as well. It's mad. Some of it, like, really is.
Well, and it's one of these things as well. I look at that and it's kind of like, that motherfucker was using like horrible, untested, poisonous substances on his face. It's just like, God knows. So what was the I think he did a creature, and I'm sure someone will correct me, but Lon Chaney has a creature from a film called London After Midnight, I think, and it's a lost film. But I'm just looking this up now because I could be completely wrong.
Yeah, it definitely rings a bell.
Yeah, so if you look up Lon Chaney in London After Midnight, I'm pretty certain London After Midnight is a lost film. But it's mental. I don't know how he did it, because he's got this thing where his eyes are kind of sunken into their sockets in a way that would require, I guess, like really strong glues or something. And he's got this like crazy rictus grin, sort of Joker style, with the teeth sharpened up. And I guess there's a bunch of appliances and stuff there, but it's just, I don't know how he did it. He did it in 1927 as well. It's absolutely insane. I just don't know. I don't know how he did that. And I've been watching a lot of Tom Savini interviews recently as well, again in preparation. I'm doing a piece on the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Duncan and I went and shot the links last week or 2 weeks ago, so I'm patching that together now. He is someone who views himself as a magician. And the whole of that film, Night of the Dead 1990, it's all about misdirection. And that's why the changes to the original were based around kind of a magician's misdirection. So it shows you something you think and then it pulls you in from another direction. And he's really good at like digging. He'll dig a massive hole in the floor, stick an actor in it, and then put some fake legs over the back of the head so it looks like they've been twisted in half and stuff like that. It's all magic. And I think it really comes off in Savini's approach that he is essentially a magician.
Yeah, I would agree with that, though. I'd agree with that for sure.
It's really interesting. I mean, he's a really engaging dude to listen to as well. He's a very entertaining guy. If you ever go hear him
great personality.
And he was once in a film where he had a gun in the shape of a mechanical cock and balls, which
I'm a big fan of that movie, actually. Nicotero's in it as well, isn't he?
He is, yeah. And I think that as Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger did the effects for that. I'm pretty sure, because they've become Tarantino and Rodriguez's guys, haven't they, really? Because I know I think they worked on Kill Bill as well and stuff like that. So those guys you can't even call it a niche, really. They're doing kind of really top end stuff with cool filmmakers now. Well, they always did. I guess if you got your start with Romero and Raimi, then
it's not bad to stick it on the CV, is it?
It's all right. I think the thing is with because you mentioned Raimi earlier as an influence, and it's something that kind of turned me onto this. It's what made me take films seriously, even though they're not the least serious films. But it's just getting those DVDs as a kid and just watching the behind the scenes and just going like, holy shit! Like they just scraped a bunch of money together and just fucked off with dicks around in the woods. They basically went and had their own gory summer camp and then come out with this film. And the whole attitude to it is just like, we're going to go off and put on a show.
Yeah, that's because obviously, I mean, you're probably the same as well. Like when you're like 16, 17, sort of ran around with your mates and a sort of a video camera, really. And it's kind of like the Evil Dead's like that, but just done a lot better.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of us went out and got cameras after watching The Evil Dead and then didn't make anything one atom as good.
100%. Oh God, I remember it's my A-level media studies film, and me and my mates, we shot this sort of rip-off of Spinal Tap called The Return of the Viking Kings, who are like this 80s metal hair band.
Right.
Done like in a Nick Bromfield style documentary. And we had like a car chase and everything. It was mental. It was only supposed to be 5 minutes. We did like 17 minutes. We got an A.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, I got an A for mine as well, actually, film study, because we did, we ripped off Ring, or Ringu, because it was before It was before the American version came out.
Yeah.
And we did like a 5-minute kind of sort of rip off of that, which did really well. We also, I think in our first year, we did like a Kung Fu one with the music from the Big Boss. We called it Chasing the Dragon because we wanted to put a drugs reference in the, because we were 17 and thought that'd be clever, which I stand by, damn it, as a decision. But quite a lot of that stuff. I've got piles of mini DV tapes upstairs where we made like dumb little army films and stuff like that. I mean, we never took it seriously. And then it was around the time Jackass got big as well. So there's footage of us like setting fire to each other and hitting each other with baseball bats and stuff too. Which probably sidetracked for the proper cinema type stuff we could have been doing. But, you know, hey ho, live and learn.
Well, they made movies out of those Jackass things, didn't they?
That's true. Yeah, I'd say this appeals to a niche audience, Lewis. So I think you might enjoy it. Buried on the channel on Valverde Broadcasting, because it used to be just my channel, and we rebranded it. One of the very first things I uploaded is a film called Ghost Pit, which was me and a friend and I specifically parodying the shit A-level films that we'd seen, which is a really cunty thing to do when you've got a good grade and then to just sneer at everybody else's. But yeah, we went to a house. Went to a house party. We were up all night, and then at like 6 a.m, we just took the camera and just made this film and just ripped on the other A-level films. It's a very specific avenue of humour, but you might dig it if you go.
Oh no, 100%. I'll definitely watch it. Oh god, no, yeah. Look,
so what's the plan? Bringing this back on, we'll bring this conversation to heel a little bit. What's the plan for Sleep Tight once it's done? So you're going to shoot in late October. I suppose what I'm asking is, how long do you anticipate production and post-production to be? When do you think you're going to have a finished product? And what is the plan for it? Are you going to? I saw, for example, you were at Rain Dance recently.
Oh yeah. Well, that Rain Dance was they do these great little. Obviously, they have the big festivals. But they do these great little events where you can go along and sort of network with people. Mm-hmm. And that's where I've met the guy who's going to be doing the music for our short as well. He's fantastic. And so yeah, I went along and sort of just promoted it by like shamelessly wearing that T-shirt. And at the end of I got on stage and pitched it, and then at the end sort of ripped my shirt open like Superman and had the title of the...
Oh, nice. Oh, nicely done. Yeah. A bit of theatrics.
Why not?
Yeah, why the fuck not? Oh, brilliant. So, I mean, how did that go?
It went really well. I was, sort of accosted by many actresses who wanted to be in it, and then I had to tell them that I already casted it all, and they were very disappointed.
I've just taken a note that says, remember to pitch fake film to get girls. I've just written that on a post-it note.
Apparently it worked.
Okay, so you're going to get this done, then you're going to enter it in festivals, shop it around?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to, because we've had to push the shoot date now to November because of sort of scheduling conflicts. So we're shooting it in November now, but hopefully have all the posts done in December. It's one of those things where I didn't really put like a straight deadline on the post of it. I'd rather, do you know what I mean? If it takes a month, 2 months to get the post done, I'd rather have it done really good than opposed to rushing it.
Yeah.
But then hopefully shop it around to some festivals in the new year. And and then obviously pop it on the internet, and hopefully it can be an internet sensation, and Jason will give you a phone call.
Yeah, right. Well, that's how that works, man. You just sit back and wait for all the hookers and blow to roll in.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a director now.
Yeah, big big Hollywood, real Hollywood movie.
Big Hollywood movie. Yeah. Well, don't forget the Cambridge Film Festival. We have one up here every September, October. It's reasonably prestigious. You get a lot of kind of named directors and stuff come through. So, and actually as well, we do have, there is a film collective here, whose name I can't remember, and they do regular kind of every 1 or 2 months they do a thing at they do mini festivals at the Arts Picture House and screen horror shorts and things like that. So I will put you. We can talk after this. I'll try and give up some details because that's just another avenue for you to explore. I'm sure you're set for places to exhibit. And obviously, best of luck. I mean, we'll pimp it for you as well, because as I kind of mentioned before we started, with Duncan and I are thinking more and more about kind of promoting British film and the such, which includes yourself, because this sounds like a really interesting project. And hopefully, I did tweet out the other week, but people just mostly expect sarcasm from me on Twitter, and I think more people will listen to this podcast, I hope, and give you a bit of a push. Is there anything else you'd like to add about your film? Have you got like a nice kind of catchphrase or just a way to sum it up and get people G'd up for it?
Well, that's the thing. So if you like, old school films made with passion before, corporate cinema came and ruined everything, then Sleep Tight is the movie for you.
Love it. Yes. That's the kind of talk we like on this corner of the internet. One more question before we go. This is a strictly dry financial question, because I don't really know. I'm not particularly au fait with crowdfunding. I'm not really sure how Crowdfunder, the website, works. So do you have to hit your target to get the money that's been pledged, or will you be able to take the budget that's been given to you if you don't hit your target?
Well, you have two options. You can either do that style where you either hit that target or you don't get anything, or you can do where you sort of can take whatever you've got, you can take it.
Okay.
Which I don't know why anyone would go for the other option. But so that's what we're doing.
Cool.
And luckily, whatever we get. Hopefully, we've put like stretch goals on and stuff like that, so we'll see. But hopefully we get, everything, but, we'll make it work.
Yeah, that's a question. I just wanted to know that, because I know, for example, a Kickstarter, I think if you don't reach the goal, you get nothing. And what I was basically asking was, if you don't reach the full goal, is it still going to happen? Because I really want to see it. Cool. That's good news. Good. Excellent. I want to see it happen. And I'm glad that you're going to be able to try and do it within whichever means you receive. All right. Well, that's it for this, boys and girls, citizens of the glorious nation of Valverde. I've enjoyed speaking to Lewis. It's been a good fun time. Please go check out his trailer and the Crowdfunder page. So I think it's going to be a good lark. And all being well, I hope to talk about this film again in the future, when things are wrapped. Thank you very much, Lewis. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for having me.
All right, cool. And we'll be back with our normal variety of crap next Wednesday. Thank you very much, and tatty bye.